Hello and welcome to Wheel Footy, the best lit wheelchair football show on YouTube, probably. We'll get right into it and start with the Queensland Wheelchair Finals. The first game, third versus fourth, was instant elimination. Kind of, at the very least. Third versus fourth, the winner goes on to play the loser of the other final, and the loser of this game goes on to play Beenleigh and risk the humiliation of being a winless side's first and only victim this year. Mount Gravatt took the win in a game that was rendered closer than first thought thanks to differences in goal accuracy, with only a strong final quarter separating the two sides in any real sense. So next was the final between first and second, meaning Mount Gravatt would go on to face Ormeau later on in the afternoon, in a result I could have told you about last week, as the Morningside side is just an imposing force this year. Morningside beat a still very good Ormeau by 128 points, with Michael Dobby Bridges seemingly responding very well to last week's shout out on the channel by kicking 12. Ash Holt provided sterling service to the Morningsiders, whilst Josh Boyle only got 4 and Paul Letters failed to score, and so exited pretty much MDB's only competition for top scorer. Redcliffe then faced an undermanned Beenleigh in the consolation final, and the Buffaloes really held their own in this one, leading at the start but eventually getting reeled in. It was a very low-scoring affair, the final half only generating 11 points worth of offence and 1 point in the final quarter, but these are very positive signs for Beenleigh. Although it's been a winless season, this match here shows that they can take it to at least one of the other teams, so hopefully they'll get a W in their column next year. The final match of the day pretty much decided who would lose to Morningside in the next week's grand final. Annie Rose got the first goal of the game for Mount Gravatt, and the team celebrated by conceding the next 6, with the game practically being over at the first interval. Letters got 8, whilst Mount Gravatt used the second half to really rotate their players, only one of their 6 players failing to register a goal, which is actually really impressive, but that was not going to stop Ormeau from taking the final grand final spot. So that grand final will be this Sunday at the Nissan Arena in Nathan. What a name for a suburb. For those not in the know, the arena is right near Griffith Uni. Take the M3 straight out of town and take the Clump Road exit. It's off Mains Road, the actual arena itself, but I just wanted to say Clump Road. Moving to Victoria now, and this was the last home and away round before the finals. The stakes could hardly have been lower. Yeah. Pretty much every position was already locked in. St Kilda were 8 points behind the ladder leading Richmond. I thought I'd never have to say that for a long period of time. And 8 points ahead of the Pies. The bottom 3 were separated by 1 win each, but the percentage difference between them was such that a thrashing was required by any of them to make up any difference. St Kilda played Collingwood and started hot, getting up 7-24, but from there till half-time it was an absolute shootout. It very much stopped being a shootout right after the interval, with the Pies chucking on 6 of the next 7, with Sam Moraldo's return being celebrated with just the 14 goals in the end, his strike partner and Patrick McKay managing 10 himself. Sean Groenewegen also showed some potential for next year with 11 himself, Seb Walsh getting 7 and Ryan Smith going goalless. I think he might have done some midfield work, I guess. I still haven't really got any collaboration with anyone in the Victorian League yet. I've been sending messages with Austin Kruger, but we haven't managed to find a way to do stuff yet because he's so busy doing other community stuff. So I will figure something out. Actually, I'll tell you at the end of the episode what I have figured out for next week. But in the end, the Pies won this one by 35 on the back of that strong third quarter. Then that undefeated Richmond side, with a bloke in it that's averaging 10 goals a game, played a fourth-placed 2-win Essendon. Despite heroics last week, a lack of supply left Caleb Logan unable to repeat his heroics, with said top scorer Chris Kotsanis scoring 14 in an 85-point shellacking. He ends the regular season with 86, 28 goals ahead of his teammate in Ange Mavroudis, who got 7 in that game. Yassine Hill, for the last-placed Hawks, is the best non-Tiger, 1 goal behind Ange. The VWFL operates the same final system as the Queensland League, except I don't think there's a 4 and 5 consolation game afterwards. Regardless, this means Richmond will face and likely destroy St Kilda in the qualifying final, the winner going straight through to the last Saturday in September, the second Sunday in August. doesn't quite have the same ring to it, and the loser facing the elimination final winner. That's either the Pies or the Bombers. It'll be the Pies. Both those finals are this upcoming Sunday at the fantastic State Hockey and Netball Centre in Parkville, just next to the zoo. Check it out. The SANFL action was on Friday night at Lightsville as usual, and the mighty Woodville West Torrens faced a spirited West Adelaide, coming off their best result for the year last week. Despite this, a thrashing did seem on the card, so picture the surprise when Hallam Chitty clears the first centre bounce and finds Johnny Van Ranchery, who kicks the first goal and ensures the winless Westies had the lead in matches more often than they haven't this season, which is a pretty good marker. Now, this is a Woodville West Torrens side who haven't lost a game since 2023, so of course that didn't last. The Eagles kicked the next 9 in a spellbinding display once more from Trevor Jarrett. By halfway through the third, he'd kicked 11, with the Eagles taking a 19-82 lead. But for the first time all season, he decided to bench himself. This introduced talented wheelchair basketballer Izzy Nitschke to the match, making her debut, and she was immediately impressive. In only 11 minutes of court time, she had 11 touches, 8 marks inside the forward zone alone, and 2 goals from 4 shots, unfortunately hitting Darren Misko on the mark twice. Still, a promising debut, on pace for nearly 200 stat feeder points if she played a full game, which is an elite number. Incidentally, the stat feeder system is something I introduced myself. I gave it that name to make it sound more legitimate. Essentially what I do is I feed stats into a spreadsheet, and that's why I call it that. An average game, for reference, is around 80, with an average full game pace rate being about 100. Well, the number's behind me anyway, you can see it. Adam Roque again single-handedly lifted that league-wide average by scoring an outrageous 278, the best game all season, which by my counts included 43 touches, 10 tackles, 18 forward zone entries, 12 intercepts, with half of those being marks, 8 assists, 6 centre clearances, 4 rebounds and a partridge in a pear tree. It wasn't the easiest of sailing for the Eagles, though, kept to only 59 points in the second half, which is very low for them, and indeed West outscored them for the final term, even despite 3 late Eagles goals. The margin in the end was 85, a belting, yes, but consider that it was 136 points last time these two teams played, and West scored 1 goal too for the night that evening. So that's a big, marked difference. Darren Misko was impressive as a presence, considering that he was basically facing Dr. Manhattan in midfield, winning the ruck duel and a nice bundle of stats. Yang Dan again served as highly efficient positional spack filler, being the only man this round to score a goal, win a one-on-one defensive contest and get centre clearances, and Hallam Chitty was again very useful with 4 goals. But again, it was Jack Billsborough who was West's best, consolidating his position as the best pure defender in the league this year by winning 2 one-on-ones, getting 23 touches, again leading the league this week in rebounds and laying 5 tackles. Chitty coming in and taking a lot of forward rotation time has really freed up Billsborough to play defence a lot more, which I feel is his best position, even though he spent a lot of time forward last year. It's really telling, the change in West's structure ever since this change happened. Then, the game of the round, Centrals versus Norwood. Centrals had gotten the wood over Norwood last time out, as the Redlegs had somewhat of an off day. This time, though, the Legs came in with a plan, and the sheer determination to get revenge was palpable to me from my position in the Norwood camp. Plus, it sure helped that Darren Peters, perhaps the finest utility in the league, is out for the rest of the season with an injury. Sean Whitbread, top 8 in vault this season and a real and present danger up forward or in the middle, would usually fill the gap wherever Peters isn't, but he was also unavailable. Centrals were now without 2 of their 3 most valuable players that had more than a game under their belt this season, up against an almost full-strength Redlegs. The match began as many thought, both forward aces in Central's Stuart Webster and Norwood's Jamie Smythe scoring early. Then Central's just kind of stopped. Norwood focused on pressing high up the ground, preventing the Bulldogs from rebounding effectively. I wish I could spit out numbers for disposals per rebound, because the difference in how quickly each side was able to transition out of their back third was immense and very, very telling. Henry DeCure popped up for his first halfway through the second to bring the lead back to 28 for Norwood, a mark that had hovered around since about halfway through to the end of the first quarter. Then Norwood upped their pressure. Smythe scored 4 goals in about 2 minutes, 3 from forward third ground ball gets, which is such a rare goal source, but he just found so much space out there that he could do what he pleased, and from there it wasn't really close. The reduced numbers for Centrals were telling, and while the third term was a low-scoring slog, the fourth wasn't. Centrals scored 2 straight, and to be fair, they made the most of what limited chances they were able to generate, and Norwood scored 5-3. Smythe ended up with 14 out of North's 20 for the night for a huge stat feeder return of 231. His 7 ground ball gets in the forward third have been matched by a single team's efforts in this year in a single game once, and that was the Eagles in the game before. Grant Leonard, his strike partner, may have been slightly wayward in front of goal with 6 goals 5, but he played a fine defensive forward role with 24 touches, 7 tackles and 3 spoils. I recorded Norwood having more tackles than any other team in any other round so far, with the massive caveat that I was completely dog shit at recording tackles in the first couple of weeks. I've gotten a lot better at that since, so the numbers have obviously improved. I cannot stress enough, all of these stats are taken by me at the ground with a pen and paper, so they're not accurate and they're not the official league stats, but they don't have a complete compendium that I need to generate VORP, so that's why I do all of my own, and I want my stuff to be consistent, not a mishmash of numbers. Anyway, that's a segue that didn't need to happen. Let's go back to the game and the stats. So me getting better at registering tackles certainly helped Nathan Simpson register his best game of the year. 9 tackles by my count, helping him to a score of 127, whilst the others rotated through roles and used Norwood's greatest strength, that being their depth and their fitness, to ensure constant pressure. Chris Simpson, Michael Neroni and Rick Leonard played games that, if they were on the ground for the entire time, would have registered very nicely in a statistician's sense, but they seemed better served rotating and keeping each other fresh throughout the game. On the ball, the legs were indomitable, having a better disposal efficiency than even the Eagles that night, dominating Centrals in every stat bar the ruck on their way to a staggering 82-point victory. For Centrals, Stuart Webster was an obvious best for them, 6 goals, 5 tackles, 8 forward zone entries and a raft of 1%ers besides. Barker was trying hard down back, but 3 frees against him soured the performance somewhat, and Jason Tippins did an admirable job standing in the midfield due to the absences of Peter and Whitbread, so expect to see him more in defence next week once Whitbread returns. With 1 game left in the current fixture cycle and 4 games left overall for the season, Norwood move up to 2nd. Centrals are even on wins in 3rd, but the last 2 results for them have really represented a monumental swing shift in percentage, and the loss of Peters for the season will be telling. The Eagles obviously are still top, and converting our weird little sample percentage into AFL dollars gives them a percentage of 259 for reference. West's loss essentially confirms them as wooden spooners for the season, but again, this season was all about development. They're still playing most of their senior team in the reserves games beforehand as well, which is having an impact on their match fitness obviously, and no other team is doing it because every other team has been established for so much longer and been able to generate a full reserves team, or at least full enough to get by. But considering the rate that Wests are improving, they'll likely have 2 more very good chances to avoid a winless season against a Petersless Centrals, and potentially Norwood depending on how they play. Thanks to Smythe and Jarrett both scoring 14, the leading scorer race still has the same gap, which is 8. The only difference is the expanded daylight to 3rd, with the gap to Webster now reaching 24 goals, while Grant Leonard leaps up to tie with Stephen Edge, only 3 goals back from the Centrals' number 23. I'll close this out with my team of the week, and for the first time, neither Sorai Chabib or Trevor Jarrett feature within it. That's how good the rest of the league were able to do. Jarrett benching himself gave Grant Leonard just enough of an edge to scrape the second forward spot by 5 ranking points, alongside Jamie Smythe, who's the first forward in my team. The Eagles are of course represented by Adam Roki in midfield. He's just an absolute beast of a machine, while Jack Billsborough again takes the full-back spot for a 2nd week in a row. Underlining the Redlegs' fantastic night is Nathan Simpson, who makes his first team of the week on the strength of his tackling game and got the best stat feeder score out of any defender in the league this week. Jarrett, of course, takes the 2nd bench spot and is really stiff to do so considering he did score 14. Central's man Webster grabs the 2nd with an all-round performance, and Rick Leonard grabs the 3rd on a split decision from Central's Jason Tippins due to doing almost as much and only playing half the game. Plus, you know, the scoreboard as well. I don't make the rules here, except that I do. To be fair, Tippins has been impressive in a variety of roles so far, and will continue to be so throughout the season, no doubt. So, that's all for today. Be sure to check out the final series if you're in Melbourne or Brisbane. Next week's episode is going to be a bit different. I'll miss the sample games as I'll be in Melbourne on a filming weekend, so I will be taking in at least one of the VWFL games next week. Say hi if you see me there at Parkville. Otherwise, I'll see you when I see you.